This is Tony Holler, and I'm going to talk today about making speed the priority in your program. One of the first things I think it's always important to review is this whole idea of what is the mission of Feed the Cats. Let's talk about culture a little bit. I hear about culture all the time. It's one of those buzzwords, and to me, culture is kind of a weird subject because a lot of people that consider themselves big on culture are just people that have a lot of rules, or they do some fun things, a scavenger hunt, or they visit the sick, or they read books to first graders or something, and they call that culture. And I just want to talk just a little bit about what I think culture is. First of all, my team rules. My team rules, they're just one of them. Show up every day for practice. That's it. It's funny, in my chemistry class, I had one rule as well. Since I knew kids would show up every day, my rule was the Vegas rule. If they want me to be their favorite teacher, a guy that's an actual human being that will talk to them and have fun with them and all that stuff, what goes on in our classroom stays in our classroom. And it was strange every time we had a parent-teacher conference. Parents wanted to tell me that my class was all they ever wanted to talk about at dinner. And, I had to tell them, I said, they're breaking my only rule. And, we laughed about it. But I think it's important to understand that good families, good teams, good classrooms don't have to be a police state. So for culture, to me, and I got this from Steve Jones, that everybody has culture. You hear it's either intentional or by default. I used to think I didn't have culture because I didn't have a lot of rules and regulations and consequences. But I do have culture, and I'm proud of the culture that we've developed. Basically, we have high expectations, and we teach those expectations. We don't drive expectations by rules or by punishing kids. We teach expectations. And I think, that's sometimes a forgotten thing that gosh, we're teachers. And if you really have great culture, rules and consequences are pretty unnecessary. Now, once in a while, you might do something, where, a kid acts up and you send them home. But I don't think you have to have a written rule for everything. I believe in leadership by example. I love servant leadership. I think that anybody that wants to complain about leadership on their team probably needs to read The Twin Thieves by Steve Jones. I think we always have to talk about a tradition of excellence. And no matter how good your team's been in the past, you still talk about the tradition of excellence. And that's the excellence in the culture, not necessarily the number of games you've won. I'm really big on the idea of happy and healthy. And by happy and healthy, I don't mean like a goofy, fun, like it's a birthday party happy. I'm talking about kids being mentally healthy and physically healthy. And we just have a rule on our track team that if you're banged up, you don't run, period. And what that does is I think kids appreciate their health. They miss practice. And instead of like browbeating a kid about it, what, you're not practicing today? You better practice. No, our kids want to practice, and that's part of our culture. We compete all the time. We compete more in practice than any track team I've ever seen. And if I had a football team, it would be the same way. It was that way when I coached football for 25 years. And I think it's really important that kids learn to win and lose in practice. That's a learning experience. We don't always get to win. And if you don't compete in practice, then your kids will only lose in games, and then it's like catastrophic and all that. And I'm just such a teacher. I taught for 38 years. I've coached for 43, and I really believe in the high school experience where teachers are coaches and coaches are teachers. And my dad was a teacher, and my parents did not have a bunch of rules and consequences. They taught us how to act, and they got mad at us when we didn't act right, and we learned from that. So I think we all need to think about culture and what it means to us. I'm always getting the question on the weight room. I know this is supposed to be about speed, but the weight room obviously is a part of training and all that. So a lot of times, a lot of people don't think this is very satisfying, but I say stay general in the weight room. Now, general means let's work on pushes and pulls and squats and hinges, but there's all kinds of variations of all those things, and there's absolutely no variation of any lift that will make you directly fast. Or I like to say that there's no lifts in the weight room that fast people do well and slow people do poorly. None. Period. There is no way that I can pick my 4x1 team by watching them lift weights. Now, in contrast, we want to be extreme in speed training. Well, what does that mean? We want to spike up, get timed. We want to be maximal in our effort. We don't want to run. We want to sprint, and we want to sprint. Our goal is to sprint faster than we've ever sprinted before. I'm not a believer in, we just want them to go 90%. I hate percentages, and I really don't like people who talk about it. So no, we time. No, of course, you try to be loose and efficient and all those kinds of things because you want to be fast. So it may not be trying too hard, veins popping in your neck and all that kind of stuff, but we are really trying to run fast. And then in the sport, we need to be specific. And you may say, of course, in basketball we shoot, and in baseball we throw and hit. But there's so many coaches that are not specific in practice. They do a lot of general BS. And practice is when we get good at our craft, our sport. So away from our sport, we create athletes. How? General in the weight room, extreme in speed training. And then in the sport, we get better at our sport. My two big rules about the weight room is never let the weight room interfere with speed. And that hurts a lot of people's feelings. What does that mean? That means if your leg day is Monday and guys are sore for 3 days, I don't like you. I don't like you as a strength coach. You are interfering with speed. Why in the world wouldn't you wait till the end of the week to destroy their legs? And why are you doing that anyway? I mean, if you are interfering with the pursuit of speed, you are making athletes less athletic. They are missing out on a great opportunity to learn how to move fast. And then the other thing is never let the weight room interfere with the sport in season. And once again, there are so many track coaches that I hear about where the football coach, he doesn't care if they have a meet or not. He doesn't care if the state meets the next day. They're going to do what they do in the weight room, and to hell with track. And I don't think that's a good way to be with kids. That football coach is hurting the kid, by the way. It's not just hurting the track team, it's hurting the kid. So we need to work together and never let the weight room interfere with the sport or with the pursuit of speed. Now, we work on speed 2 or 3 times a week. That's max. 2 or 3 times. During the winter, we go 2 times a week. And speed stuff is so misunderstood. People think I'm all max velocity, blah, blah, blah. Well, this week, we will have 2 speed days, and my guys will be at max velocity for less than 10 total seconds. Think about that. Less than 10 total seconds of max velocity speed. But this is important. That 10 seconds is the most important thing those kids will do all week. Weight room, track, wherever, it's going to be the most important thing they do. It is so crazy microdosed that the return on investment with sprint training is just blows my mind. We do not spend that much time sprinting, but it's still our priority. So one of the things that I've created, and I created it just kind of by accident. I read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Everybody should read Atomic Habits. And I was at the time working with a lot of elite lacrosse athletes that were going to private schools out east, and man, they didn't have time to work out. I was giving them optimal workouts, and they didn't have time. So what I did is I came up with the smallest possible workout that could possibly improve their speed, and I think it will. And it just has a great hook. I can say you can do this in 15 minutes and it only takes 60 seconds. 15 minutes of time, 60 seconds of work. Now that's a great hook. I mean, can you get out of the house twice a week and do the atomic speed workout? It's small, but it's powerful. And kids would say, heck yeah, that sounds great. So what we do in that workout is we do 10 speed drills. We do a fast march. We do A-skips. We do high knees. We do box jumps. We do bounding. We do pogo jumps. We do prime times, short ones, big ones, and bent knee prime times. And then we accelerate to top speed. And then we run 2 sprints. That's it. Now, if you want to do our full workout, then you do 3. And shoot, if you want to do 4 or 5, I've never said no to a 4th or 5th sprint. Now, if you want to see what that atomic speed workout looks like, it's on my YouTube. It's easy to find. Just look up atomic speed workout. It's really gotten to be a big thing. There's a heck of a lot of football teams that have incorporated that into their warm-up, or actually replaced their long, slow, tiring, pre-fatiguing work or warm-up, and they're doing this instead, which allows them to time sprints and the guys stay healthy and all that stuff. It's really become a part of sprint-based football. And of course, we time with free lap. By the way, when we run sprints, we must take 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time between timed sprints. But if you're doing 10 speed drills in 10 minutes, 2 timed sprints with 5 minutes rest, that's 15 total minutes. And that's 60 seconds of work. So I think it's a great way to form a habit. And that's what Atomic Habits is all about. Starting small and developing a consistency. So our X Factor work, this is where things get interesting. Our speed workouts are fairly boring because we're repetitive. And before you dismiss me for not knowing what I'm talking about, like, oh, he's way too repetitive. Well, you got to be repetitive shooting the basketball. If you're a basketball player, you got to be repetitive with throwing and hitting as a baseball player. You got to be repetitive in tackling, catching passes and stuff in football. We have to repeat the things that are essential, and sprinting is essential. But I also understand the other half of the coin, and that is that we must learn how to adapt to new stimulus. And that's what we do with X Factor. X Factor, originally, when I coined this phrase for a workout, obviously I didn't make up the word X Factor, but 20 years ago, I called workouts where we were going to do different types of exercises. We are going to stay extremely varied, and that X really to me meant unknown. That the kids were going to come in and they didn't know what in the hell we're going to do that day. They just knew it was going to be a lot of different types of things. But X also really sounds like the start of the word exercise. So these are days that we don't sprint, but we do exercises that we have a reasonable hunch will be good for getting fast. So the first thing, of course, jumps and bounds and skips. These are things that fast guys do pretty good. So we do a lot of these things. Sometimes we get the just jump mat out. And if you've ever done this, you'll find out that guys, they'll jump 10 times. If you jump 10 times as high as you can, that's a workout. So testing becomes training, training becomes testing. By the way, guys that jump 38 inches like that will probably be the fastest guy on your team. Well, if that's the case, then the guys jumping 24, I think we need to get them jumping higher. That's X Factor. We do straight-legged jumps called pogo jumps. We're working on not just jumping and power here, but also a bounce. My dad used to say my dad was a basketball coach 47 years, and one of his favorite things to say about great players is that they were bouncy. I love a bouncy player. Yeah, because bouncy players jump well, they're fast, they're good athletes. Bounce. Here's another example of bounce. Big, strong hurdler, and he's just bouncing over imaginary boxes. This is much more of a tuck jump where the knees come up to the chest. We're jumping really high. This is much more of a power thing, but it's also that we want to get off the ground. We want to land and jump at the same time, which I always learned was the definition of a plyometric, landing and jumping at the same time. Now we use what we have. Like if we have a ramp, like out the football field, we'll do pogo jumps up the ramp. We'll do diagonal bounds where we stick the landing. Learning this collision that happens between your lower body and the track. This collision is really important. It helps to create strength and stiffness in the sprinter. And so we do a lot of force absorption type stuff like this. This is diagonal. We also do straight line, bound and stick, where we go as high and as far as we can, and then we try to stick the landing and rebalance. Now, you see a lot of people standing around watching. You'd probably be appalled at how much standing around and watching we do on X Factor days, because we want to really minimal dose it, because on almost every X Factor day, we have a sprint day the next day. Sometimes we bound and do funky things with our hands, like putting them up above our head. And what this does is really work on the core and the lateral sling. This kid actually, when we're doing this, I said, I want you to bound and put your hands above your head. And he looked at me like, what? Well, that's what X Factor is. We're learning to do new things. Now, this kid's an all-stater, and so he adapted pretty quick. Now, if you take a freshman who most freshmen can't bound, and say, put your hands over your head and bound, they're going to look silly. But we still want to expose all those kids to new things. We want to measure things. If you want to change the way kids perform, video. Sometimes I fake video. I pick up my camera, my phone, and I pretend to be videoing them doing something, and they'll go farther, jump higher, run faster, because they think they're on camera. Another thing that you can do is compete. Another thing you can do is measure. Time something, or here we're going to measure bounds. Now, sometimes we do single-legged bounds. Let's see if we can get this going here. This is just a regular bound. This kid caught a touchdown pass for Bowling Green last week. Nice athlete. But if you say, we want to measure how far you can go in 6 bounds, and we put like pylons out, for 40 feet, 50 feet, and and at each interval, so that we don't have to get a tape measure out. So I just think that anytime you can make training a more game-like by measuring something, it really helps. Oh, here's a single-legged bound. Actually, we're competing too, but one guy didn't get the memo here, so he started real late, so it's not much of a competition. But this is a single-legged bound. Now, we do this with like freshmen, even though they're terrible at it. And both of these guys, when they were freshmen, they were terrible too. But because they were exposed to it, and because they saw older guys doing it well, they eventually get good at it. And we just found that the people that bound in powerful ways are faster than guys that bound poorly. We do a triple broad jump. You can make stuff up here. It's not that hard. So in this case, we have a guy, we are going to two-footed, and we're going to roll through each one. And if you get somebody that can triple broad jump 31.6, they're probably going to be an all-state jumper. They're probably fast. If you get a guy jumping further, he is getting faster and more explosive. So that's why we do these things. There's something we made up called the star drill, where we jump up in the air and we look like we're making a star. There's force absorption here. There's power. And even if this is a worthless exercise, if you do it a couple times a month, it's probably not going to have a major detrimental effect. So we're really free to try things. Upward bounding. Now, if you don't have concrete stairs, like an outdoor stadium like this guy does, don't do this. But if you have it, man, if you have sturdy stairs, there's a lot of good things you can do. Now, you don't try to condition on those stairs. Use those stairs for the upward explosive stuff. By the way, I always like to ask, do you think this guy's fast? I don't even know who this guy is. I think he's in Europe somewhere. But I guarantee you, he's fast. Almost all of these drills, you can say, man, that's athletic. Well, if it's really athletic, let's get good at it. Here's a standing triple jump. Triple jump is one of the most advanced things we do. We jump off of 2 feet. We're going to land left. And then we're going to land right. And then we're going to land on 2. And if you get a guy going 29 feet on a standing triple jump, he's probably going to go 45 in the real triple jump with a big run in. And guys that go 45 in the triple jump are pretty good athletes. By the way, they found that so many wide receivers in football in the NFL has had a triple jump or long jump background in track and field. Everybody knows they're fast, but it seems to be almost more prevalent to see horizontal jumpers that really become great wide receivers. We make stuff up. One day we said, okay, we're going to skip, but we're not going to do a normal skip. We're going to race, and I'm going to make you skip left, and then right. Once again, their brain is like, say what, coach? What are we doing? Once again, exposing. Now, I'm not showing you the videos of the guys that look stupid doing this. And I guarantee you there are those guys. But those guys grow into sophomores. And sophomores grow into juniors. And so a regular diet of these types of things on days that we don't sprint, I think is really good for kids. I'm shocked at the level of lack of coordination that I see with incoming freshmen. But I say that, but I've changed schools twice in my 43-year career. And both times I changed schools, I went to a much larger school. And in that first year at the larger school that had more good athletes, it was shocking at how uncoordinated their juniors and seniors were, because they'd never done stuff like this. You know what they do? They're really good at lifting hard and doing really hard conditioning. They did nothing fast. They did nothing that looked like this, ever. They just did strength and conditioning. That's all they did. And so they left so much athleticism on the table. Booms are just, a rhythm thing. It's a high knee thing. It's a snappy thing. And of course, we can go boom, 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 boom. We're also working on that foot being in front of the body and the toe up, that dorsiflexed toe. Now we're going to go single booms. Just snapping on each one, pausing, balance, working on our hands. And then we've made this up recently. We called it boom, 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 skip, skip. And, the guy, looks at me and goes, Coach, what is, I go, well, try it. Boom, 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 skip, skip. Boom, 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 skip, skip. Boom, 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 skip, skip. We're big on wickets. Here, these are 6-inch wickets that are 6 feet apart. We sprint in. They're all equal distant, 6 inches tall, 6 foot spaced. This guy's from the Bahamas. He came up and trained with me for a week, and he's about 6'5". So he probably could have gone over 7 foot spacers, but he did just fine with that. Now you'll see the wickets are down. I do that a lot of time with groups because I don't like to set the wickets back up. And what I found is that guys will still go over these wickets like they were barriers. So we sprint in. If you see the guy standing way down, like 20 yards away, that's where they start, and they sprint in, and then they'll go over these trying to be big in the front, which means that knee up in front of the body, the foot out in front of the body, the foot dorsiflexed. And then, of course, we never want to be long in the back. We want to get from toe off to knee up as quickly as possible. And that's what it looks like. And the whole line goes through, and then we go the reverse direction. And every time we go over one of those wickets, it looks like this. That's what it looks like. And that's what a sprinter looks like. They are big in the front. They're short in the back. That angle of the thighs is pretty big, a big split of the thighs. And it is tilted to the front of the body. Joggers don't look like this. This is how sprinters look. Joggers look like they have T-Rex arms. A sprinter's hand goes past his hips like it does, like Jalen Gavon is doing here. And it's amazing when you go over a barrier. This is my grandson about 3 years ago when he was only 3 years old. First time he's ever gone over something like this. And it's just amazing. He got big in the front, foot out in front of the body. He's short in the back. It's a big split. The wickets have a way of teaching kids how to run. Now you have to give them those cues. I've seen cross-country kids go through wickets, and I can't believe how poorly they do it. Now, our kids have really gotten great at it because we're like 15th in the nation this year, second in the state, and we're just terrific athletes now. And they've done so much of this X Factor type of stuff. They do the wickets, they do the med balls, they do all of our stuff. And then they run a lot too. Now, when we go through, we like to do things with our hands. Here's a hands high thing. You didn't see him run in. He runs in normal, puts his hands up at the last second. We love that. And then we go do a lot of other things like that. I'll save you. You can find those things or ask me later. But here are timed wickets. Remember, if you video and time stuff, guys will go pretty hard. I'll show you that again. That went pretty fast. We're timing with free lap. Those things are 6 inches high, 6 feet apart. Or we could do competition wickets. Once again, competition and video, pretty good. We could have gone competition video and timing. That would have been great too. I don't know about you, but that looks fun to me. There's a lot of stuff that I had to do in practice that is almost like the coach said, we're not going to have any fun ever in practice. Here's competition wickets on turf. We started the goal line, very short run in, so we kept the wickets at 5 feet. And you may say, well, how do you know how far to put it? Just try something. Try something and do it. We do a lot of hip mobility things. We've been doing this. This video is about 20 years old. There's an all-state hurdler I had, and just extreme focus. I've seen so many people do things like this, but without focus and sloppy and all that. This kid was a technician. He just cared. And of course, what I would do is if I was showing the team how to do it, I'd say, Cole, show everybody. Let's show it. And so he would rub off on everybody else. More hip mobility. We're just stepping over. These are called over-overs. Here's an aggressive over. I love this. We just invented this last year. So yeah, it's over, but we're like in a hurry to get through. We're like kind of frenetic with our pace. Lateral walkovers with rhythm. So many kids have really tight hips. We're just making kids into better athletes here. We do leg swings. We don't do them to warm up. We do them for performance. As high as we can in the front, as high as we can in the back. We grab a little ground as we swing through, and we go until we get tired. I think this guy will go about 7 seconds, 8 seconds maybe, and says, okay, I'm going to have to rest. How long do you rest in between? Enough. Enough to go hard on the next one. See, he's going just as fast on this one. You've got to rest enough. You cannot cram the things together and then say, I want a good effort. That's all you're going to get is an effort. You're not going to get a good performance. And effort does not lead to high performance. High performance leads to high performance. We do big split drills. These are things where our legs split apart because sprinters' legs split apart when they run. This is called the long lunge. This is called the snappy lunge. This guy ran 10.71 in the 100, so he has a leg that can really snap through. The ability to be elastic in something like this, where you can go from back leg to front leg in like a tight rubber band, is really important for sprinting. Here's our TFC presenter and good friend Rob Assisi doing a extreme iso lunge. If you've never read his article written, he called himself OG Static Work because he used a couple bad words in it. But anyway, this guy, he would do like 5 minutes each leg, and there's magical things that happen when you do isometrics. Isos are just fantastic. No soreness the next day. We do these for 30 seconds. Here's somebody doing it for about 30 seconds, but I want you to see the shake. There's some crazy co-contractions going on there. See the heels up a little bit. We're straight up and down with the shin, straight up and down with the torso. We go about 30 seconds, and then we'll switch. Here's an ISO we're doing with the foot. We learned this. Chris Corfus is probably the world expert on strong feet for sprinters. And this is an ISO. We're just trying to get up as high as we possibly can go. I think this is actually a video. Yeah, it is. You can't see much except for the shake here. But he's up on his toe. A lot of times our guys will take off their shoes. It allows them to get up on their toes a little more. Now, if guys aren't strong enough to do this single leg, we go double leg. And usually we say 2 fingers on the wall just to give us a little bit of support. We don't want the whole hand on the wall, but this is hard, and we try to go 30 seconds on each foot. Now we're in a squat position, and we're up on our toes. See how he has 1 finger? And we got a little shake going on. This is for that ankle and foot complex. We got a lot of shaking going on there. Crazy. It's amazing that guy's not trying to do that. That's the body co-contracting and doing all kinds of magical things. We do Russian lunges where we bounce, 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 and switch. Bounce, 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 switch. I've been told by Brad Fortney that some of his sprinters are doing these Russian lunges before a sprint and have found they sprint faster, which means these things might be a magical potentiator of speed. One of our favorite things, we got this from Chris Corfus. He called them marshals because Marshall Ellis used to do them before he'd run a sprint. Once again, I wonder why Marshall was doing these before a sprint. A potentiator of speed. He'd do 2 or 3 of these each way, and then he'd get into the blocks and run faster than he's ever run in his life. So we are jumping up and getting into a lunge position. That's why I call them an air lunge. We are jumping into, it's a lot easier than naming them after somebody named Marshall Ellis. So I like to say that with X Factor stuff, we work on bounce, snap, power, big split, and hardwiring. I really think this air lunge checks 4 of the boxes. There's a bounce, there's a snap, there's power, and there's a big split. By the way, slow guys can't do this. I promise you, slow guys cannot do this. So if slow guys can't do this, let's get better at it. Let's get that offensive tackle doing things like this. Let's get athletic. Let's stop just having them squat and then run till they throw up. Because we have portable bleachers, we do bleacher drills. This is called a depth jump, where we step off of like a 30-inch bleacher, I think it is. And then here we're jumping over a 42-inch hurdle. Now, a lot of your guys can't jump over a 42-inch hurdle. You may have to have a wicket down there, or maybe nothing at all. You just try to land and jump at the same time and jump up. We also sometimes do a depth jump into a broad jump. Those are really cool too. Obviously here it's all about a vertical jump, a tuck jump after hitting the ground. And we are hitting the ground and responding to the ground. I love those. Sometimes we put 2 hurdles up. You could put 3 or 4. Seated pop-ups, we just invent stuff. Like, okay, why don't you sit down and pick up your feet and then hit the ground real hard and go up in the air. And if we don't like it, we just don't do it anymore. If we like it, we'll probably video it and say, let's remember to do that again someday. But we want to expose ourselves to all kinds of different things. If we think bouncing is important, let's figure out ways to bounce. Just bouncing. And we're using that top leg to kind of get us a little bit higher. We're just reacting to the ground and getting off the ground. If you think about it, that's what we do when we sprint. We don't spend much time on the ground. We bounce off the ground. We like to absorb force. We've talked about that before. And here, once our kids get good at this, and some of your kids will not be able to just walk off and stick a landing. But, when kids are like D1 wide receivers, they get to the point where they can stick a landing from like a 360. And Jalen was a very good athlete. And sometimes we've had guys that have done backflips and stick landings. But anytime you can stick a landing, basically that means when your feet hit the ground, and we want the entire foot hitting the ground. We don't want to land on the toes. We want as much balance as we can. Basically, when your feet hit the ground, we want the entire body to stop, to stick the landing. A lot of people just cave in every time, or they have some weird pop-up reflex where they hit and then pop up, or they fall backwards or fall forwards. So I don't care if they are bad with it. We still want to get better. Med balls are fantastic. Here we're just doing, this is probably our favorite, just a high med ball throw. This guy's throwing 14 pounds. He does a pretty good job with it. We want to throw it as high as we possibly can. We want to finish with the hips. Let's show you how you finishes with the hips here. Full extension. You can do all the stuff you want in the weight room, but if you're not doing some of this stuff too, I think you're missing a lot. I don't think, I think it's a little bit different than the things that you get in the weight room. We do wall busters. This is rotational. You say, well, gee, there's nothing really rotational in track, is there? Well, we want to create athletes, and athletes are rotationally strong. Get kind of dizzy watching that. We call them wall busters because we're trying to knock down the wall. We do push-pull type stuff. This may not make us faster, but when we come out in acceleration, our brain has to accept the fact that we are diagonal, that we are not straight up and down. Because if the brain doesn't get used to this, there could be a stumble reflex where you step out in front of yourself and all of a sudden you're not accelerating anymore. So this is really brain training as much as anything. We call them 1, 2, 3, 4s because we do 1, 2, 3, 4. How long do we do it? Until we're a little bit tired. We're not trying to get in shape. Period. By the way, we do get in shape. We get in shape by doing this stuff, but that's not our goal. Just like I say that not one time all winter do we do an aerobic focused workout. But my guys are in damn good aerobic shape at the end, going into their track season. So just because you don't have an aerobic focus does not mean you won't have aerobic benefits from stacking together this type of work, stacking together anaerobic work. Obviously, this is a resisted acceleration. We like this. No machines involved. Somebody said, hey, there's like sleds that you can do. Shut up. I mean, I coach 37 guys, and we have like 2 sleds in the school. And they're a pain to get out. And, this works pretty good. But if you want to push sleds, do it. I know there's a lot of research that says pushing heavy sleds are great, but there are always guys that have never coached a track team. These guys that do all their research and stuff, it just kills me because they wouldn't be able to do my job. So, take this, I think I like, I like the body position that this girl's in. That is a really good acceleration position. I think, it makes sense. But I think you can get really fast and get good acceleration too. You can also pull things. I know Brian Kula doesn't think that you should ever pull more than 20% body weight. And I think they usually, with like McCaffrey, they usually do less than that even. And, this makes sense. I like the body angle in this diagram. We just don't do it. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means that maybe you can be pretty damn good without doing it. I guarantee you this. I've never seen a great sprinter who was bad in acceleration, that got smoked by slow guys in the first 30 meters. It just doesn't happen. The same CNS that controls max speed controls the muscle firing of acceleration. Now, if you may say, well, I don't agree with his X factor stuff because I don't see enough change of direction. Well, do it then. Just do it. What the beautiful thing about X Factor is that you are free to try things. There's never an X Factor workout ever that I don't make something up. I want to make something up. And if I like it, I'll video it and put it on Twitter. If I don't like it, we just won't do it again. And it doesn't hurt us. It probably helps us. We tried something. We got exposed to something that our brain was like, I don't know what in the hell I'm doing right now. So, I saw one time, I used to bring my head football coach out, the previous head football coach, and he would help me on X Factor days. And I looked down one time and he had like a double hula hoop, and he was doing like figure 8 races around the double hula hoop. And, I might think, well, that's really not a track and field. I liked it though. I liked it. It's like we want to expose our guys to stuff that's hard to do, that is intense, that lasts about 5 to 10 seconds, and then we recover enough that we can go hard again. We're not trying to get them tired so that all they got to give is effort. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to build very intense, high quality athletic things. And people say, well, how many sets and reps? I don't know. Sometimes we do 20 things in an X Factor workout. Sometimes we might do 10. Sometimes we might do 40. Total reps, I don't know. If we're throwing a med ball, we might do, like 30 reps of a med ball. But if we're doing bounding, we're not going to do 30 pounds because, then it burns the steak and we don't run well the next day. So all those things, I just think that, you're free. You're free. Remember that 90% of an X Factor workout is standing around. And the main thing, it should be a light, like a neon sign going off in your head. Don't burn the steak. Don't burn the steak. Don't burn the steak. Because the alternative to an X Factor workout is no practice. go home and take a nap. So if we're doing an X Factor workout, we want to make a profit. Now that profit may be a couple bucks, but if you make a profit every day, you'll never go broke. And remember, make shit up. Have had contests. And if it doesn't go well, just don't do it anymore. But I think it makes it fun for you, fresh for the kids. And remember, we are trying to create adaptability in X Factor work. Whereas in our speed work, we're repeating stuff. You need to measure what matters. Gosh, I hate to say it, but on Monday, my kids didn't run very well because in football PE, they did 1 rep max squats, and I'm like, why are you doing 1 rep max squats? Like, people I know, they don't do that, so not everything that we can measure should be measured. When I ran a weight room, we did keep track of improvement and everything, but there was nothing that was less than 5 reps. I think if you can do it for 5 reps, you probably have to do it with good form, and you're probably not overloading yourself and getting hurt and all those terrible things. So measure what matters. So what do we measure? Well, in speed days, everybody thinks we only do like fly 10s. That's, like feed the cats. It's so stupid. All they do is fly 10s. Hey, last I checked, you had to run at least 100 meters in a track meet. Okay, haters gonna hate. Yeah, we do 10-yard flies. We do 10-meter flies. We do 20-yard competition flies. When we're outside, we do curved runs. I mean, like half of what you do as a sprinter is on a curve. We'll do 35 meters on a curve. Why 35? 35 meters on the curve is the spacing of hurdles. The 300-meter hurdles are 35 meters apart. So we don't have to measure anything. One of the reasons why we like 20 yards and 10 yards is because men's hurdles in the 110s are 10 yards apart. So we don't have to measure anything. Even though it's a metric track, the men's hurdle marks are 10 yards apart. We do a 40-yard fly, and we think the 40-yard fly is probably the most. I mean, if a guy is the best guy at the 40-yard fly is your best guy. I mean, I just think there's no way to cheat the 40-yard fly because it's such a longer sprint. So it's really important, but we don't like to do we never do 3 of those. We may do 2 10s and a 40, but we love the 40-yard fly. By the way, the fastest guy in the 40-yard fly is going to be the fastest guy in the 10. The fastest guy in the 10 is going to be the fastest guy in the 35 meters on the curve. Speed is speed. We do only one acceleration thing. We used to do like a 30-meter dash and call that acceleration. We've never done a 10, ever, ever, ever. I think if you start measuring the first 10 meters or 10 yards out of the blocks, guys are going to rush their acceleration. They're not going to push like they're supposed to in a meet. They're not going to have long, strong steps. So what we do is we put the free lap cones at the first and second hurdle mark. That means the start cone is at 15 yards. The finish cone's at 25. So we come out of the blocks, or maybe we don't come out of the blocks. Maybe just 3-point stance or just a leaning start, whatever you want to do. And we will go 15 into a 10. But I think my guys do those long and strong pushes because they're not being timed in that first 15. So that's what we do with Excel. And then we do 2 different sprints. The 40 yards obviously has the great connection to football. So we do 40-yard dash. I think in my first 10 years of Feed the Cats, I was timing 10,000 40-yard dashes a year from like 1999 until we got our first timing system. And that was around 2012. Or maybe, is it 2008. So around 8 or 9, 10 years, all we ever did was 40s with a stopwatch. I would average their best two. We'd run three, average their best two 40-yard dashes. And we had terrific success during that time period. I love the flies because you can change them to miles per hour. And I think miles per hour is just gamifies our training so much, and kids relate to it. We also do the 55-meter dash. That is, our indoor meets are either 55 meters or 60. They're usually 60. We can't run a 60 on our track because it's too small, 178 meters around. It's not a full-size college track. So the longest sprint that we can run indoors on a straight is 55 meters. So we do that about once a week, and we like it. So for anybody that thinks we only do the really short things, I mean, all these are short, but we like a lot of different metrics. We like, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 metrics here. That means each guy has 8 personal records, 8 lifetime records. And every time we run one, kids get to break their record in practice. Now, it doesn't happen very often because we run fast every day, but it gives us 8 different chances. So why would we just do one thing? I think you really need to work at gamifying training. Now, quickly, what that means to me is make your practice more like a game. We didn't go out for a sport because of practice. We went out to play in the games. And for some reason, practice has been hijacked by coaches who made practices miserable and not game-like. And that's why guys, didn't like practice. So we need to make practice more like the game. But I also think when you think about making it game-like, things like competitions, things like measurements, record, rank, and publish, all those things is kind of like keeping score at practice. And it's more fun. I don't know if, like as a basketball player, I loved it when we did clock situations in practice. When they, like, hey, we're down 5 with 60 seconds to go. 1 minute to go, we're down 5. And, we practice game situations. Man, that was the best part of practice ever. So we just need to constantly be thinking about making practice more fun, more game-like, keeping score, measuring what matters, all those things. And I think it takes a lot of work to make like a football practice more game-like, but man, you need to try. One of the things that really makes it game-like for us is we hand out these wristbands, 20 miles an hour, 21, 22, 23. This is obviously for a pretty good track program at a fairly big school. We have like 2,300 kids in our school. And we have a pretty good track team. So, last year we were really young. We only had 2 guys that could run 23. The year we got 3rd in the state a few years ago, I think we had 5. You give me 5 or 6 guys that run 23 miles an hour, we're going to be hard to beat. Oh my God, we're going to be hard to beat. We're going to have jumpers. We're going to have hurdlers. We're going to have great relays. Yeah. So, if I'm coaching girls, you probably subtract 3 here. If I had girls at a similar size school, I'd go 17, 18, 19, 20. Whatever boys do, it's -3. If you're running on turf without track spikes, it's probably -1. People understand that, hardly anybody in an NFL game ever breaks 22. But the fact is, those guys could break 24 or 25. If you're Tyreek Hill or DK Metcalf, you can probably run 25 miles an hour spiked up on a track. That's what you have to do to be able to run 22 in a game. On soft turf, 12 pounds of pads, semi-fatigue. So when people say you do not have 23-mile-an-hour athletes because DK Metcalf can't even, that person knows nothing about speed whatsoever. We run on a hard track. We run with spikes on. And yes, we have high school kids every year that can run 23. Now, I can't go through a TFC without talking a little bit about sprint-based football. I kind of feel like, even though Brad Dixon might be the godfather of it, Rick Aaron's probably been doing it longer than anybody, and they've only lost like 5 games in the last 6 years. But Brad Dixon won a state championship this year. Garrett Mueller won a state championship. There was one in Idaho, one in Michigan. There's about to be one in Connecticut. Anyway, sprint-based football is basically feed the cats football, and I'm really proud of the influence I've had on football. Not because I want to be known for being the Howl Mummy of feed the cats football or something, but what really makes a difference to me is that coaches feel reborn and feel so inspired by coaching a new way. And that's because the kids are having more fun, and not fun in a goofy way, fun in a winning way. And it wins. It's an absolute competitive advantage. So I want to just mention a few things, just going through a checklist of what Feed the Cats sprint-based football looks like. First of all, you have to say winning is more important than hard work. And you say, of course. Well, there's a hell of a lot of football coaches that say, I will not do sprint-based football because I don't want to be accused of being soft. If you don't think that happens, you don't live my life. There are coaches everywhere that are afraid they'll lose their first game and get fired because they don't do conditioning. And I believe that performance is more important than effort. When kids are too tired to perform, all they can give you is effort, period. And that is the tradition of sports in America, and for sure, football tradition in America. And when you start performing in practice, you don't practice as long, your recovery is more, and your speeds are more like game speed. Feed the Cats coaches do not blame losses on a lack of toughness, a lack of conditioning, or, hey, they wanted it more than we did. They just wanted it in the fourth quarter. They don't do that. They say we got beat because of our turnovers. We got beat because we were outmanned up front. We got beat because we just need to get better. Sprint-based football, obviously, the name of this entire presentation, prioritizes speed in and out of the season. In and out. Prioritize. Now, that doesn't mean you do sprint work more than you do football work. No way. That doesn't mean your sprint work is more than your weight room work. It just means that you prioritize speed, you care about speed. If your team's slow, you look yourself in the mirror and say, how did I screw up? How did I screw up? How come we're slow? And you start building your practice schedule and your team around speed. You let the games be the hardest thing you can do. The hardest thing you do will be the game. My dad used to say, we're going to practice so hard that the games will feel easy. I took that and flipped it. I flipped it. That if the games are so hard that you need a day off the next day, what happens if your practices are harder than games and you're not taking days off? Well, I'll tell you what happens. It's a downward spiral. The road to slow is all downhill. Gravity, baby. You're just going to be a slow-ass team, and I don't care how excited you are for the game, you will not perform well. So you need to back off in practice, and your total volume needs to be 50 to 60% of your game volume. The magic of the game will take care of you. Your kids will do fine in the fourth quarter. Weekends off. That's for all players. They sleep in on Saturdays and Sundays, and coaches get creative so that they don't have to have 6-hour meetings. RPR is a part of sprint-based football. If you don't know anything about reflexive performance reset, you're kind of behind the times. You're missing a key competitive advantage, and you really need to look into that. Get in contact with Chris Corfus as soon as possible. This type of program attracts the best athletes in the school. Garrett Mueller had 11 basketball players on his state championship football team. 11 basketball players. When varsity basketball started, they had one kid at practice. One. Because the other 11 were still playing football. If If football is not miserable, the cats of your school, the athletes of your school will want to play football. You will be injury free, and I mean damn near 100% injury free. It is. I'm still shocked at the dozens of coaches that report to me they're like 3 rounds into the playoffs, playing for the championship, whatever, and their roster is at 100%. I don't know if it's if it's RPR. I don't know if it's the reduced practice time, less collisions. It might be because their team has a 30-point lead at halftime every game. But something's happening here. People report no concussions, and I think that's RPR. I really do. It's just happened for too long, and I think RPR basically is concussion prevention. And it wins. Good God, it wins. I mean, it's just Garrett Mueller 14-0, Brad Dixon 14-0, Eric Becker out at Hand High School in Madison, Connecticut, 12-1, playing for the championship game this weekend. It just wins. And I think this is huge, that kids who love practice inspire coaches, and the coaches feel reborn. Coaches reflect kids. If you have to be a mean son of a bitch every night as a football coach, you're not going to go home happy. You're going to go home needing to self-medicate. You're going to go home and kick your dog and yell at your wife. And that's no way to live. And then you apologize to her and say the season will be over before long. And that's just not good. We need to be, good husbands and fathers, and we need to walk the dog when we go home. And we're a lot better if we like the kids. And if you back off and practice and stop conditioning and all that kind of stuff, things work a lot better. Why prioritize speed in football? Well, the most extreme movement of the human body is sprinting. Max velocity in a straight line. Our CNS, our brain and spinal cord, becomes better. We raise the ceiling of our CNS when we sprint fast. If we train the extreme, we train the range. So by training the extreme of movement, sprinting, we train all movement. Forward, backward, sideways, change in direction. We get better at first step, a second step. We get better at jumping. All movement will improve when we train extreme. That is extreme. This is extreme too. I could watch that all day. That is extreme. We want lightning bolts going from our CNS to our muscles in nanoseconds. That the ability to fire quickly allows us to move quicker. An amazing thing that Brian Kula has found, he trained 2 girl golfers at Kula Sports Performance in Denver. One's now golfing at Montana University. The other was the number 1 5A golfer in the state of Colorado this year. And they trained these 2 girls. This is not the girl. It's just a generic picture. They trained these 2 girls like they would Christian McCaffrey. Sprint fast, lift heavy, jump high, jump far, bounce. They didn't train them like golfers. They didn't reverse engineer golfing. They got 2 miles an hour faster sprinting, but their club speed improved 15 miles an hour. CNS, baby. That's what we're talking about. All movement improves. They also trained Highlands Ranch Aquatic, and they train them not as swimmers, but they train them as athletes. By becoming more athletic, faster, stronger, more explosive, 48 club records in swimming. People are always thinking that we need to reverse engineer the game. People look at a soccer player and say, man, well, how far do they have to run in a game? 9 miles? Well, we need to run those kids to death. because they need to be in shape to run 9 miles. But then I say, Coach, describe your best player. And they, well, fast, explosive. Jeez. Why run the cat out of her? Look at this picture. Does she look like a marathon runner? Do you want this girl to look like a marathon runner? Hell no. Train them to be fast, explosive, athletic, and stop focusing on conditioning. Curry runs 2.7 miles in every basketball game. There's some people that might think they're smart, saying we need to run him about 3 miles a day. You prepare him for the demands of the game. Reverse engineer the game. But I'm here to tell you that if you run him 3 miles a day, he won't jump as high, he won't run as fast, and his mind will probably be slower. I'm sorry, all you distance runners out there, but I think that sprinting actually makes your brain quicker. I think there's a cognitive improvement in your brain when you sprint. So especially as Curry ages, we need to make sure that he remains fast or gets faster, jump high, jump far, lift heavy, bounce. And we let the game take care of the game, and the game will take care of his conditioning. Another reason why we have to do it is health. When Kyle Bolton and I were sitting at TFC out in Sacramento, California, Kyle was at TCU last year, now he's at the Rams. I said, Kyle, how come you guys speed train 3 times a week in season? And of course, they played in the championship game last year, national championship game, TCU. And he said, I thought he was going to say, because we want to be the best athletic version of ourselves going into the final week. But he shocked me. He said health, which kind of goes along with what I was saying, that somehow when we have a sprint-focused team, when we care about speed, when we say that speed is the barometer of a player's health, they stay healthier. It's crazy. But he said health was the main reason why they speed trained in season. Speed is just it's not just another bucket. Because see, if you take speed and improve it, you can improve the other 5 buckets. Too many people, they can't prioritize and they just go in every direction. Let's fill every bucket. Yeah, sounds right. Fill it all. Chris Corfus one time, a football coach, said, I want you to get my players bigger, faster, and stronger. And Corfus is like the most Corfus answer ever. He said, in what order? Because he knew there is an order that we should care about, and it's faster. Movement is key. We're not saying don't get bigger, don't get stronger. We're saying that movement is the key. So by improving the CNS, which means we improve linear speed, our ability to change directions gets better. CNS controls it. Our ability to accelerate is better. CNS controls it. You say, well, how does it change game skills? Well, with game skills, I believe as the CNS gets primed, the game slows down for us. We see the game slower, so our skills actually improve. You can talk to any S&C coach. The very best warm-up for a strength session in the weight room is sprinting. Sprinting is number one. You will become stronger as you get faster. And then capacity basically means if I can get somebody running 23 miles an hour, I wonder if he could run 18 miles an hour 50 times. Hell yes, he could. So the faster you are, the better your sprint capacity. So as you get faster, it's almost like you get in better shape. I love what Buddy Morris says, that we train our skilled guys like Olympic sprinters and our big guys like hammer throwers. But everyone is exposed to max velocity. See, Buddy's a different type of meathead. I know he works in a weight room, all that kind of stuff. But Buddy Morris still holds his high school 100-meter record. He's one of the few weight room people that I know that comes from a background of speed. And so he talks about every football player needing to be exposed to max velocity. How do you train a cat? Sprint as fast as possible. Linear max speed. Time them. Wear spikes. As often as possible. 2 to 3 times a week. Staying as fresh as possible. Get your sleep. Don't burn the steak the day before you sprint. Now, there's a lot of guys 6'4", 238, but not many of them that can run 4.39. Speed amplifies power. Yes, you can be the strongest guy, the biggest guy in the game, but if you're slow, you can't pack a punch. Speed creates sprint capacity. We just talked about this. But sprint capacity does not improve speed. So if I took a guy and ran him 100 times at 15 miles an hour, he would probably literally get slower. He for sure does not get faster. But if I could get that guy to run 23 miles an hour, he could run 15 all day. The biggest mistake is to focus on repeat sprints. There's nothing wrong with running repeats up a ramp. It's just not getting you faster. So people need to shut up about, yeah, speed training went good today. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. Work your guys hard. Say, yeah, we're going to run 100 times up a ramp. And we're going to get really strong and really good at running up ramps. But this is not speed training. Speed creates endurance. Marcellus worked probably 1/10 as hard as the other guys that he's kicking their ass because Marcellus is faster than they are. That he could go out and run 19 miles an hour for 48 seconds, and these other guys could not because he had a higher ceiling for speed. He could run 24. Man, running 19 for 48 seconds wasn't that bad. If you train 100 miles an hour, 80 probably feels pretty comfortable. But in the tradition of sports in America, you practice at 60 miles an hour, and then you try to go 80 in a game. And you condition yourself like crazy, but still doesn't help because you're going at game speed in games and you're not used to it. I love the Feed the Tigers, the men's lacrosse team at Princeton. They fed the cats, and within 10 weeks, they went from having 3 guys at 20 miles an hour. Only 3. 3 miles an hour is not very fast. But then they had 17 at 20 miles an hour after 10 weeks. And some of the guys improved by like 2 miles an hour. Unbelievable. They went from being a slow lacrosse team to being one of the fastest in the nation, and they went to the Final Four. And they stopped doing conditioning, and they still ran circles around people in the fourth quarter. We can also take young kids. This kid played on my freshman B team. 16 miles an hour. That's like one of the slowest running backs I've ever had coaching freshman football. And as a senior, he ran 22.4. Man, look at his average 40 time. Went from 5.28 to, as a senior, 4.42. That doesn't happen by default. That happens because he did speed training in the summer and he did it in the spring every single year. And he got faster and faster, and he actually had a really good shot this year at making the Chargers. He stuck with them to the final cut. Quite a testament to a guy that was the slowest running back on my team back, when he was a freshman, and then he had a good shot in the NFL this year. We want to build athletes in all sports. I think it's important that we watch McCaffrey and things like this. TFC speaker and good friend Brian Kula sent me this video, and the only thing you're missing here is that you're not seeing the rest times. You can't do this, like bang, bang, bang. There's got to be a recovery. And you may think, well, yeah, we're probably missing the conditioning part nope. He does nothing. He stacks anaerobic work, and he gets an aerobic benefit. He does no aerobic focused stuff whatsoever. He is still in great aerobic shape. I know if you're an S&C guy, I know that your textbook does not tell you that. And Brian and I, we don't know why it happens, but we know that if you repeat a lot of anaerobic work, you get aerobically fit, and maybe you shouldn't be, but you are. But we want athletes, whether they're volleyball players or basketball players or golfers, track athletes, to train like athletes. Train like athletes. And then when you get to the sport, you can be as specific as you want. But you want to have great reactive strength, bounce. You want to be able to absorb force, be fast, all those things. I love the truck stick. Garrett Mueller developed this. Obviously, he didn't develop the physics of it. Basically, it's just that momentum equals mass times velocity. And so what the truck stick does is that, yeah, I think you should reward the fastest guys on your team, but your fastest guys will never be your bigs, ever. They won't be your fastest. But man, if you get a big that can run, you got a special guy. So he has special truck stick stuff made up for 600, 700, and 800 newtons. And what he's found is that 600 is like entry-level varsity type dude. And if you're an 800, you're an all-conference player. And so I think it's these dog tags are amazing. If you want to read more about it, I wrote an article. I gave Garrett credit, for coming up with it, but I wrote an article. You can look it up. It's on the TFC website. So why is conditioning so bad in football? I'm going to give it to the experts here. Boo Schexnayder, once spoke at TFC. 80% of all college football players never reach their genetic ceiling for speed. I 100% agree, and that's because they care more about lifting and conditioning. They're speed deprived. Everybody thinks that speed is just genetic, so they leave it. Or they think it's another bucket, and they leave it. Josh Bonhotto worked for the Bulls, worked for Purdue basketball, and he spoke at a TFC as well. Too often I see coaches overemphasizing conditioning, of course, during the offseason and never developing absolute capacities of strength, power, and speed. They attack repeat sprint ability when you have never truly developed speed and thus sprint ability itself. It's one of the most beautiful paragraphs I've ever seen written. You are developing the ability to repeat sprint without ever getting fast. Period. Mark Ellis from Princeton, he's speaking this year at TFC. He's now at Northwestern. He says, for us, it's speed and explosion before everything else. Some strength coaches are mainly focused on getting athletes bigger. Other S&C coaches prioritize conditioning. At Princeton, now he's at Northwestern, we want speed. We don't want the fastest milers. We prioritize fast, explosive, strong in that order. Cal Dietz, he's spoken at multiple TFCs, and Cal is an amazing guy. He said conditioning needs to mimic football, violent, fast, explosive. Well, I'm sorry, but stadium stairs are not violent, fast, explosive. Running laps, not violent, fast, explosive. Doing gassers, nope. Those things, that is not what makes football players good football players. And then Vince Anderson, one more TFC guy, one of my favorite people in the whole world. He says, if you demand explosive movements when running, blocking, tackling, and in the weight room, why would you turn your back and then run slow conditioning with poor posture? It sends a mixed message and detrains you. Vince says he rejects all high volume work, period. All high volume work because it detrains athleticism and detrains speed. Finally, one last TFC guy, my good friend Brian Kula, the trainer of Christian McCaffrey. Speed, power, and efficiency are the key to playing fast for an entire game. Speed, power, efficiency. And of course, my t-shirt that never sells because, this just isn't manly enough or something. People think it's soft, but, when you grind people, they're crushed into smaller parts. And the noun to grind means hard, dull work. I'm sorry, but I don't want to do hard, dull work. I want to play games. I want to become an athlete and I want to win. The last thing I'll mention is I believe that coaching is a Sisyphean task. If you don't know what that means, I'll give you a little Greek history here. The god Zeus dealt Sisyphus the eternal punishment of forever rolling a boulder up a hill in the depths of hell, the depths of Hades. And I think this is kind of, like a sad commentary on life and sad commentary on coaching. But the way I see it is that we don't ever get the damn boulder up the hill. I mean, we roll it up and get it up pretty high. Sometimes we get high enough that we celebrate how high we got it, but it rolls right back down. We start over. And so, I've been rolling that damn boulder up a hill for 43 years. My dad did for 47. Now, we got, I can say, oh, I won a couple state championships. Yeah, but it was like in one state, it wasn't like we were better than a team from another state. There's always somebody saying, yeah, but. So no matter how good you do, you arguably never get to the very top, ever. And if you do, it doesn't stay there. It just doesn't. And instead of being depressed about that, I think we have to find ways to enjoy rolling the rock. And that's what I think Feed the Cats can do, where coaches go home happy every night because, or most nights, obviously, everybody has their problems. But on the whole, when athletes are looking forward to every practice and they feel practice is just as fun as games, you go home happier and you sleep better and you're more inspired to become a better coach. So I'll leave you with this, roll the rock and enjoy it. Roll the rock. If you ever need to get a hold of me, here you go. I'm one of the few people that put out their cell phone. I'm retired from teaching now, have been for 5 years. So I'm my schedule is free enough that I can do remote coaching, consulting, webinars, and also I can come and do a clinic for you. We can sell tickets and make both of us some money. My son Troy runs my YouTube and Instagram, and I hear both of those are pretty good. I think I got 20,000 YouTube followers and 50,000 Instagram followers, and I never even check it. I don't check my Instagram. I actually answer questions on YouTube, but I've never been on Instagram in my life, and I have 50,000 followers. So I hope he answers the questions well for me there, and he probably does a good job. Do want to mention a couple of seminars coming up in January. If you're out in the Southeast, North Carolina, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, Chris Corfus and I are going to be down there, only $100, and it's like a two-man show for a 24-hour deal, and people really like them. Then we go out west a couple weeks later to Irvine, California. Same thing. We'll do another Feed the Cats seminar there, and it'll be track, football, and strength and conditioning, all that stuff with RPR mixed in. Chris will do an RPR session at both of those. So those are things in our future. And I'd like to thank you for listening. You guys that watch this video got a much longer session than I will actually give at TFC. I will cut it down accordingly to make it fit to an hour, but you guys got the uncut version, the extended version. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you speak well about TFC. And we don't advertise or anything, but our people have really spoke highly of their experience, and it helps us to have one every year. We've had 20 now, 20 TFCs. So until next time, I'm going to sign off. Good luck to all of you.